Welcome to Left, Right, Center. I'm Sean Boyd. We begin with the presidential transition and its potential impact on Colorado. President-elect Donald Trump is wasting no time selecting cabinet members and top advisors. Among the people he's tapped for key positions, Representative Matt Gaetz, Attorney General, Fox News host Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, former ICE Director Tom Homan, border czar, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, Representative John Ratcliffe, CIA Director, Senator Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, former Representative Lee Zeldin, EPA Director, campaign co-chair, Susie Wiles, Chief of Staff and longtime advisor, Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff. Joining me, our analysts, Republican Dick Bottoms, Democrat Mike Dino. So, Dick, Homan and Noem, they're all in on mass deportation, which Trump has said he's going to start right here in Colorado, in Aurora. How do they plan to carry this out?
Well, that's the big question, Sean. I think there would be universal agreement in getting criminals out of the country. I really do. I think that if they honed in on that element, I think there'd be large public support. But I'll tell you what, if there are going to be mass deportations where federal agents go door to door, I mean, I just think that's a sure loser politically. So I don't know.
How would you even do that? You know, would you even knock on the door? I mean,
yeah, I think.
I struggle to understand how they're going to carry this out.
Right.
You know.
Now, Homan said that that's not going to happen, but in an interview, so we'll see.
Yeah. So, Mike, as Secretary of Homeland Security, Noem would not only head up immigration policy, but TSA, Secret Service, FEMA. That means she's the one Colorado's going to depend on if we have a wildfire or a flood. Should we be worried?
Well, I always think that, you know, there is plenty to worry about. As my mother said, you know, it's their turn now. And but the good thing about Noem is she's a governor.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think she has that perspective. But as we are seeing in all these appointments, you know, the president-elect is appointing loyalists.
Right.
And that's a big deal. I mean, I think if you want, you know, as a Democrat, if you want to look for a bright spot somewhere, there seem to be more organized, at least, than last time in getting their team together. But you know, that only means that they can, you know, in a more organized way, cause trouble.
That is a good point, though, that she was a governor.
Yes.
You know, I'm thinking Trump doesn't have any love for Colorado,
no,
really. So, you know, that's why I'm thinking, you know, do we worry? What kind of attention are we going to get if we need the federal government? Yeah, we need the federal government.
Well, she's had some problems, like killing dogs in the past. But overall, I think that Kristi Noem has been a fairly effective governor of South Dakota. And they've had wildfires up there and floods. I mean, they're like every other state. And I think she's dealt with them relatively well. So I have no doubt that she's capable of doing this job.
So the chair of the House Armed Services Committee, Representative Mike Rogers, claims that Trump is going to sign an executive order his first week in office to move Space Command to Alabama, which he did, you know, last time he was president, and then Biden moved it back, and we're in this game. Is there any way of stopping him? And if not, if this happens, what's the impact on Colorado Springs?
Well, it's a huge impact, and I think Colorado Springs is very concerned. And I'm sure, and puts a lot of pressure on Congressman Jeff Crank, the new congressman from down there. But ultimately, I don't think this is any big surprise. Trump wants it in Alabama. It's no surprise. He lost Colorado 3 times, and that Alabama is a much safer political territory for him. And I think it's going to happen. I think it's too bad for our state, but that's probably going to happen.
And there's really nothing Congress can do, anybody can do to stop it if he wants it there.
No, it doesn't appear so. Now, we have Space Command now. We also have Space Force here.
Right.
Peterson hosts both Space Command and Space Force, and then, of course, Buckley hosts Space Force. So I'm hoping the Space Force isn't a political football either.
Oh, jeez.
Because that does have personnel also. But the bottom line is that it is an impact that we should expect.
Right. Trump's pick for EPA director is curious. Former Representative Lee Zeldin, he's not known for environmental policies. I mean, I think he was chosen because he's an attorney. What do you know about him and what impact he might have on climate and oil and gas policies?
Well, you know, there's some pundits out there that say he's somewhat favorable to environmental issues. He doesn't have much of a record, though.
Right.
Again, we're talking about people being hired right now that are loyalists. He's from New York. He ran for governor, ran a pretty good race, lost by 6 points. I think EPA is not as much on the chopping block as it was in the first administration for Trump. That's what he campaigned on, you know, in 2016. In 2024, he campaigned on getting rid of the Department of Education.
Right, that's
and so
right.
that's really where the action's going to be at. And another nice thing about EPA, I think we had one of our locals here, Doug Benevento, who was a deputy EPA director in the first Trump administration, and I'd love to see him back for the second Trump administration.
He would be great.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Dick, Trump chose Fox News host Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. Now, this is someone who doesn't have any experience running a large organization. Again, yeah, right, goes back to loyalty. He thinks women shouldn't be in combat. Trump should fire his top military officers. Will he be confirmed, do you think? And if so, I guess, are these realistic changes?
Well, he's also got a very impressive military background. 20 years, as I recall, in the military. So he's
combat veteran.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's got that. He will get confirmed. The Senate will defer to President Trump's recommendation. But I think he's going to have to prove himself once he becomes Secretary of Defense. And so I think the onus is on him to prove that he's worthy of this. I think he's got to tone down his own personal opinions on some of these issues, like women in combat. Yeah. I don't think Trump wants to pick that fight. But
can't even imagine.
And so, we'll see. He's a smart guy. I enjoy him on TV. I think he's a really smart, articulate guy. So we'll see.
Well, somebody facetiously said, "Would you want him to run Walmart?" Because there's as many employees in Pentagon as there are in Walmart.
It's crazy.
It's a big task.
Right.
But again, Dick's right. Trump wants loyalists. They want to get rid of some of the generals, and you know, he wants people to just, you know, answer to him whenever, you know, the president wants people to answer to him.
Yeah. Well, speaking of loyalists, I think one of the maybe most surprising nominations, Matt Gaetz for Attorney General. Yeah. Trump says Gaetz will end the weaponization of the justice system. Even many Republicans are thinking he's going to do the opposite. So will he be confirmed, I guess, and what should we expect from him as AG?
Well, it's hard to believe he'll be confirmed. I mean, he's about as nutball as they come. And I think that Trump has asked for recess appointments. And one of the reasons he's asked for them in the Senate, when the Senate goes on recess, that he can appoint his own folks. Yeah. And for a year at least. They can hang in there for a year, right, and then they have to come back up. But, you know, Gaetz might get one of those appointments during, you know, while they're in recess and you know, hang out for a year at the Department of Justice.
Didn't President Obama try this? And,
yes.
And Republicans were up in arms when he tried it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that of all the appointments Trump has made, the Senate will give great deference to the president on who he wants. This one maybe not. I think there will be Republicans, especially the two women Republicans from Maine and Alaska, will probably say no way. And then all they need is one or two more Republicans to say no. But I think the ruse of this, is that he was looking for a way to resign with some dignity. Well, I'm nominated for AG, so I'm going to resign from the House.
Because of the ethics probe.
The ethics probe that may or may not be released by the House Ethics Committee tomorrow or later this week. And so I'm not sure that this will ultimately happen because of the danger in the Senate and the fact that this just gave him a way out of the House.
So Trump appointed, we knew Elon Musk was going to have some job, so he appointed him and Vivek Ramaswamy, co-chairs of the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, which Trump says is going to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, and cut wasteful expenditures and restructure federal agencies. So Congress is in charge of spending. How are they going to go about this?
Well, and there's always been tension going back to the Nixon administration in terms of an administration not spending money appropriated by Congress. So, and that's been litigated time and time again. But in this case, I kind of like the fact that they're going to take a look at the federal government. Not that they're going to do this grand scheme of cutting government, but I think there needs to be some attention focused on how big government has gotten, the scope of their involvement in our lives. And so I think this is a good thing overall. And if it results in the Congress actually being embarrassed and trying to cut back on some of this government spending, I think that would be great. So
the General Accounting Office puts out this list every year of like, here's all the
and that's where they should start.
That are waste and
yeah, that's where they should start. I mean, the GAO certainly has done a lot of work over the years, and then also the inspector generals in each of the agencies. I mean, there is some stuff they can pick up there. And the first buddy, Elon Musk, needs he's got to run his other companies. I mean, the Cybertruck has had 6 recalls now, and so the first buddy's got to get back to running Tesla at some point.
So the president, speaking of best buddy or first buddy, the president's chief of staff typically has the most influence. What do we know about Susie Wiles?
Well, first of all, I think it's a good pick.
That's first buddy. She's first buddy.
Well, no, she's the first woman to be appointed to chief of staff. I think it's a good appointment. She's the daughter of Pat Summerall, who, for CBS, he used to be a sportscaster. And but she's mostly a campaign operative. But the most important thing she's done is keep Trump in line to the greatest degree possible. I've been impressed with it too, and I think other people have. And I'm hopeful that she will be one of the more effective people around him for as long as she can be.
Yeah, and I've read the campaign staff liked her.
Yes.
She kept things kind of even-keeled through this.
I don't know her, but I've heard a lot of great things from people who do know her well. And I think Mike is right. She kept him as contained as possible, good enough for him to be elected again. And as long as she's there, I think that's a good sign for Trump and, frankly, for the nation. I mean, listen, a lot of Trump's policies I strongly agree with. I just disagree with his behavior. And that's how I felt about his first term as president. So if she can get that move in that direction, good for her.
Well, let's talk about somebody you do know. Trump, as Mike mentioned, wants the Senate to do these recess appointments, I think, to avoid filibusters by Democrats. Senator John Thune, who will succeed Mitch McConnell as majority leader, is not ruling that out at this point. But you know him personally. What kind of leader will he be?
I think that there's been a lot of MAGA criticism of John Thune as some kind of an establishment toady. I got to tell you, I saw him up close and personal when I ran his campaign in 2004 when he beat Tom Daschle. This guy is a steely competitor. He's got that South Dakota charm about him, but I'll tell you what, if they think he's a pushover, they do not know him. And I think he will be a strong ally of Trump on policy. I think, and they have quickly kind of gotten accustomed to each other, but they are different personalities. John Thune is the consummate gentleman and good person. He never says anything like Trump does, but I think he'll be effective. I do.
He was a critic of Trump's initially.
Yes, he was. On the behavior, on the
And while he hasn't ruled out these recess appointments, I think he wants to avoid them generally. But he's kind of sent a warning to Democrats: hey, don't muck things up here. We don't want to get stuck in the glue and, slow things down. But I want to keep the filibuster in place, which I think is good. Right.
He will make sure that, I think the recess appointments are not a bad thing. I really don't. I think that the administration...
Except for Matt Gaetz.
Well, except for Matt Gaetz. I would totally agree with you there.
So the House, Mike, will also be under Republican control, and Colorado is going to have 3 new Republican members in the House: Gabe Evans, Jeff Hurd, and Jeff Krang. What impact do you see them having in Congress?
Well, I think that it's nice, particularly for 3 freshmen, to go into the majority. That makes it easier for them, obviously, to have some impact. Certainly, and the thing is, they're running for re-election in 2 years. They start now, And of course, Gabe Evans will have the biggest challenge, being in a very competitive district. You know, with Trump in the White House, I think Hurd will also have some challenges, though, you know, he's in a district that may favor him a little better. And but the bottom line is that in the majority, if there are earmarks and there's other funding opportunities, they're going to get some favoritism that way.
Yeah, they might even get some of their bills passed.
Yeah, well, you'd rather bring some
good.
money back, because then you know you can add that up easier.
You know, Dick, while Republicans are going to have control of the federal government in Colorado, Democrats are going to maintain their trifecta at the Capitol, although they're no longer going to have the supermajority now in the state house, which we thought for a while that they were going to keep that. Are you surprised? And do you think the outcome of the races is about these individual candidates, or is it Coloradans sending a message, voters sending a message, hey, we'd like at least a little bit more balance down at the Capitol?
I think it was individual districts, Sean. I don't think voters were saying, well, I've got to vote this way because I don't want those Democrats having a supermajority, because they don't even know they have a supermajority. but I do think that it's a credit to Dan Woog, who's apparently going to win in Greeley. And then that district in Colorado Springs was like 21 votes, or what the last I heard. I think the guy who's happiest about this, Governor Jared Polis, because I don't think he wanted those supermajorities. So good for him. And I think the legislature will be better off not having them too.
Yeah, thoughts, Mike, on that?
You know, the supermajority, it would have only made sense if both chambers had it, for a couple reasons. One, obviously, if there were some constitutional amendments they wanted to refer without a lot of opposition, they could do it just as Democrats
want them.
Yeah,
you know, get those
and
through.
if there's laws that Polis vetoed or didn't want, they might tell them, well, you know, tough luck, we're moving with it. So that won't be the case now.
So speaking of Governor Polis and Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois are leading this new effort in anticipation of Trump policies, I guess. They launched this organization called Governors Safeguarding Democracy to counter what they call threats on state democratic institutions. Not exactly sure which institutions here, but they're going to develop this playbook that other governors and they can use to respond to those threats. Just your thoughts on this?
Well, the 2028 campaign has begun.
I totally agree.
Did I take Dick's line there?
Totally.
Yeah.
You did. You stole it, Mike.
Both of these guys running for president.
Yeah, both of them. You know, Pritzker's been heavily mentioned this week, and of course, Governor Polis is always mentioned too in that vein.
Yeah.
You know, some of the press has, you know, portrayed this as, you know, the opposition to Trump here in the states. I do think they have some concerns. Obviously, the National Guard and the president trying to supersede their authority with the National Guard. Particularly, we talked about immigration earlier, and
with the border,
and deportations and all that. And so that's probably one of the bigger concerns is banding together on that, and certainly other constitutional protections. But it's a great way to get visibility. For these two governors particularly. You know, we already saw Gavin Newsom. He got on a plane to D.C. and went back to, you know, see how he could already start fighting with Trump. And so, you know, they're jockeying for 2028.
Yeah.
Boy, I do wonder, though, that could create quite a battle if Trump says, yeah, I want to deploy these National Guard down to the border. I want to use them for these mass deportations. Polis is going to say, no way.
Well, not only that, Sean, but he also said he would invoke local law enforcement officials as well. So I think that that's a real potential problem for
that's what I was off the top saying. Just how will this mass deportation
I wish I knew.
work?
Yeah, I know. I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Right. Well, finally, we're going to end with some local politics. While polls show affordable housing, one of Colorado's top issues, voters in Denver and Adams County shot down measures that would have raised sales taxes to fund affordable housing. So, Mike, Denver's measure narrowly failed after a big push from Mayor Mike Johnston. What happened here?
Well, certainly, I think I do believe that if Mayor Johnston brings it back, he'll have a chance of passing it. Voters weren't just in Denver weren't ready for it yet. I mean, the mayor spent a lot of money and successfully to address homelessness, Housing 2000, and also deal with the migrant influx. And I think there wasn't enough detail in this plan for people to sign on to it. By and large, everybody I talked to was not a bad idea, just didn't understand how he wanted to spend it. So he'll get another bite at this apple.
So this wasn't about we thought maybe Denver Health, you know, with its sales tax measure, and then you've got the affordable housing picking and choosing. But boy, it barely failed.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't hear from anybody who says I'm never going to support that. I heard I just want to see a better plan. So I think they'll learn from that and come back. So
Adams County's tax hike failed by nearly 40 points. Clearly, I think county commissioners misgauged where voters were at on this one.
Yeah, blue-collar Democrats don't like tax increases. They just don't. And we've seen that in previous ballot questions like this going back years. And even though Adams County is a Democratic county, remember, those tax increases are regressive, and the lower down the economic ladder you go, the more impact they have.
Right.
And I think it's felt more in Adams County than it is in, say, Boulder County or even Jefferson County. So that's why it failed.
Yeah, and what's interesting is you did see some school bond measures in Adams County. Those passed, you know, so let's take out some more debt.
Right.
Just don't raise our taxes.
Exactly. And I think for, you know, our sales tax in Denver is one of the highest, but interestingly enough, Commerce City, which is in Adams County, probably has the highest sales tax in all the metro area.
Oh, really?
So that's another reason they probably, and particularly Commerce City, didn't want to see that affordable housing pass. Yes.
Right.
Interesting.
Look at that. Well, with the election over, left, right, center is winding down too. This will be our last show for a while, and I will definitely suffer withdrawal from Mike and Dick, but I think we all could use a little break from politics right now. So thanks for watching.